Hi guys, so today we will be answering a problem set on how to solve for the standard equation of the ellipse. But before we solve some problems, let's go over with the different standard equations of the ellipse. For this particular problem, we have an ellipse whose center is at the origin due to the fact that its general equation does not contain the variable x and the variable y only. With that type of ellipse, it can have two possible standard equation. The first one is x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1. That is the standard equation when the major axis of the ellipse is horizontal. The second one is x squared over b squared plus y squared over a squared equals 1. That is the standard equation when the major axis of the ellipse is vertical. Now, to solve for the standard equation of 12x squared plus 13y squared equals 156, we can start by simplifying the right side of our equation. We have here 12x squared plus 13y squared equals 156. So, we need to make the right side of the equation equal to 1. Now, to do that, we will have to divide both sides by the right side of the equation. Now, to do this, we will have to distribute 1 over 56 on all terms of the equation. So, I will have here 12x squared over 156 plus 13y squared over 156. Then, on the right side, I will have 156 over 156. Next step here is to simplify the fractions. We have here 12 over 156. That would be 1 over 13. So the first term here should be x squared over 13. Followed by the second term, we have here 13 over 156. Its lowest term is 1 over 12. Therefore, the second term would be y squared over 12. Then on the right side of the equation, 156 over 156 is just equal to 1. Therefore, its standard equation is x squared over 13 plus y squared over 12 equals 1. Okay, let's solve another problem. We have here the general equation 5x squared plus 9y squared equals 180. Similar to the previous problem, we start by simplifying the right side of the equation. So for the solution, we have here 5x squared plus 9y squared equals 180. We will have to divide both sides by the right side of the equation, which is 180. Again, we will have to distribute this on all terms of the equation. I will have here 5x squared over 180 plus 9y squared over 180, then 180 over 180. Simplify the fractions. I have here 5 over 180. That will be 1 over 36. So the first term here is x squared over 36 plus, on the second term, I have here 9 over 180. That would be 1 over 20. So the second term would be y squared over 20. Then on the right side of the equation, 180 over 180 is equal to 1. Therefore, the standard equation of this ellipse is x squared over 36 plus y squared over 20 equals 1. Now that we are done with this type of ellipse whose center at the origin, let's try to solve the standard equation of the ellipse whose center is at the point hk, or the center of the ellipse is not located at the origin. With that type of ellipse, the standard equation will be modified and the coordinate hk of the center will be included on the standard equation of the ellipse. So I have here the modified standard equation of the ellipse. The first one is x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. That is the major axis that is the standard equation when the major axis is horizontal. The second one is x minus h squared over b squared plus y minus k squared over a squared equals 1. That is the standard equation when the major axis of the ellipse is vertical. And I forgot to mention, with this standard equation, as same with the previous standard equation I've shown you, the value of A is always greater than the value of B. So that is always true for the standard equation of the ellipse. Now, to solve for the standard equation of 4x squared plus y squared minus 8x minus 4y minus 28 equals 0, we can start by rearranging the terms so that the terms containing x and the terms containing y are next to each other. So we can start with that. I would write down first the terms containing x. I will start with 4x squared, followed by negative 8x. Then followed by the terms containing y, I will start with y squared, followed by negative 4y. Then as for the constant term, I would transpose that one on the right side of the equation. Okay. So next step here is to perform completing the square. But before we perform completing the square, we must factor out first the coefficients of x squared and y squared. So we would factor out the coefficients if the coefficient of x squared and y squared is greater than 1. So as for this quadratic equation, I would have to factor out 4. So I will have here 4 multiplied by x squared minus 2x. And as for the second quadratic equation, we would not need to factor out the coefficient. So it will remain the same. I will have here y squared minus 4y equals 20. The next step here is to, we can now perform the completing the square. In performing the completing the square, we must convert this one into a perfect square binomial by adding a constant term. So I will now have 4 multiplied by x squared minus 2x plus the constant term. Similar to the first quadratic equation, we will have to add the constant term to y squared minus 4y. So here is the constant term. And to balance the equation, so whatever you add on the left side of the equation must be also added on the right side. So I will have here 28 plus the two constants. Now to solve for the constants, for this first quadratic equation, just take the coefficient of the middle term divided by 2, then square it. So I will have here negative 2 divided by 2, that is negative 1. Square of negative 1, that would be positive 1. Next is, for this quadratic equation, the coefficient is negative 4. So negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. So negative 2 squared, that would be positive 4. And whatever you add on the left side must be also added on the right side. So I will add here the product of the 4 and then the constant term. So that would be 4 times 1. Then for the second constant term, we have here 4. Now the next step here, we must convert this quadratic equation into its factored form. So to do that, so I'll just copy 4. Then its factored form will be, just take the square root of x squared, that would be x. Copy the sign of the middle term, that is negative. Take the square root of 1, or take the square root of the constant term, that would still be 1. Then place an exponent of 2. We would do the same for the second quadratic equation. So I will have here the square root of y squared, that would be y. Copy the sign of the middle term, that is negative. Take the square root of the constant term, that is negative 2. Then place an exponent of 2. As for the right side, so just simplify this one. 28 plus 4 plus 4, that would be 36. Now the last step here, or the second to the last step here, is we would need to divide both sides of the equation by 36 to make the right side of the equation equal to 1. So I will have here, again we would apply this 1 over 36 to all the terms. So I will have here 4 times x minus 1 squared over 36 plus y minus 2 squared over 36, then equal to 36 over 36. Last step here, simplify the fractions. 4 over 36, that would be 1 over 9. So I will have here x minus 1 squared over 9 plus, for the second term, that is the simplest form. So I will just copy it, y minus 2 squared over 36. Then on the right side of the equation, I will have here 1. So the standard equation here is x minus 1 squared over 9 plus y minus 2 squared over 36 equals 1. Now, for the next problem, we have here 16x squared plus 9y squared minus 64x minus 54y plus 1 equals 0. Similar to the previous problem, we would have to start by rearranging the terms of our equation. So I would write down first the terms containing x. I have here 16x squared followed by negative 64x plus the terms containing y. I will have here 9y squared minus 54y. Then the constant term will be transposed on the right side, therefore making it equal to negative 1. Next step here is to perform completing the square. But before we do that, we would have to factor out first the coefficients of x squared and y squared. So for this quadratic equation, I would have to factor out 16. So I'll have here 16 times x squared minus 4x plus, for this quadratic equation, I would have to factor out 9. So I'll have here y squared minus 6y equals negative 1. Next step, I would have to make this quadratic equation into a perfect square binomial by performing the completing the square. And to do that, we'd have to supply that one a constant term. So we'll have here 16 multiplied by x squared minus 4x plus the constant term plus 9 times y squared minus 6y plus the constant term, then equal to negative 1. Then whatever you add on the left side must be also added on the right side. So I will have here the two constant terms. Okay? To solve for the first constant term, so just take the coefficient of the middle term, that is negative 4, divided by 2, that would be negative 2. Then square of negative 2 would be positive 4. Next, for this quadratic equation, the coefficient of the middle term is negative 6 divided by 2. That would be negative 3. Negative 3 squared is positive 9. So that is now the constant term of the two quadratic equation. So the constant term we will add on the right side would be, the first one is the product of 16 and 4. So I'll have here 16 and 4. Followed by the product of 9 and 9. Okay? So next step here is to convert this perfect square binomial into its factored form. So to do that, I will have here the 16 followed by the square root of x squared, that is x. Copy the sign of the middle term, negative. Take the square root of 4. We'll have 2. Then place an exponent of 2. We will do the same for the the second term. I will have here 9. Followed by the square root of y squared, that is y. Sign of the middle term is negative. Then square root of 9 is 3. Then place an exponent of 2. Now, on the right side of the equation, so we will just have to simplify this one. So I will have here negative 1 plus 16 times 4 plus 9 times 9. Simplifying it, I will have here 144. Okay? Next step is to divide both sides of the equation by 144 in order for the right side of the equation to be equal to 1. So I will have here 16 times x minus 2 squared over 144 plus 9 times y minus 3 squared over 144, then equal to 144 over 144. Last step, simplify the fractions. 16 over 144 is 1 over 9. So the first term here should be x minus 2 squared over 9, followed by 9 over 144, that would be 1 over 16. The second term here should be y minus 3 squared over 16. Then on the right side of the equation, that would be equal to 1. So the standard equation is x minus 2 squared over 9 plus y minus 3 squared over 16 equals 1. Okay, so for problem number 5, we have here 25x squared plus 16y squared minus 150x plus 128y plus 81 equals 0. Again, similar to the previous problem, we will start by rearranging the terms so that the terms containing x and y are next to each other. So I will write down here first the terms containing x. I will start with 25x squared, followed by negative 150x, followed by the terms containing y. I will have here 16y squared plus 128y. Then as for the constant, 81, I will have to transpose that one into the right side of the equation. Okay, next step, factor out the coefficients of x squared and y squared. I will start here with the first quadratic equation. I will have to factor out 25 here. So I will have here x squared minus 6x. As for the second quadratic equation, I would have to factor out 16. So I will have here y squared plus 8y. Then copy the right side of the equation. Next step, perform completing the square by solving for the constant term of each quadratic equation. So I'll have here 25 times x squared minus 6x plus the constant plus 16 times y squared plus 8y plus the constant. Then we will also have to add the two constants on the right side of the equation. To solve for the constant, for the first constant, take the coefficient of the middle term, that is negative 6, divide it by 2, that would be negative 3. Negative 3 squared is positive 9. We have here the coefficient of the middle term for the second quadratic equation, that is positive 8. Divide it by 2, that is positive 4. Take the square of positive 4, that would be positive 16. So the constants that we will add on the right side would be the 25 here times the constant term. So I will have here 25 times 9, followed by 16 times the constant term. So I'll have here 16 times 16. Next step is to convert this perfect square binomial into its factored form. To do that, I will have to take the square root of x squared, that is x, copy the sign of the middle term, negative, take the square root of 9, that would be 3, then place an exponent of 2. For the second perfect square binomial, I will have here 16 multiplied by the square root of y squared, that would be y. Copy the sign of the middle term, that is positive. Take the square root of 16, that is positive 4, then place an exponent of 2. As for the right side of the equation, we would just have to simplify this one. So the answer to this one would be equal to 400. Next step, we will need to divide both sides of the equation by 400 to make the right side of the equation equal to 1. So I will have here 25x multiplied by x minus 3 squared over 400 plus 16 times y plus 4 squared over 400. Then on the right side, I will have here 400 over 400. Last step, simplify the fractions. We have here 25 over 400. So its simplified form would be 1 over 16. So the first term here is x minus 3 squared over 16. Followed by, for the second term, we have here 16 over 400. That would be 1 over 25. So the second term here would be y plus 4 squared over 25. Then as for the right side of the equation, that would be equal to 1. So the answer here is x minus 3 squared over 16 plus y plus 4 squared over 25 equals 1. Let's now try to solve problem number 6. So we have here 3x squared plus 4y squared plus 18x plus 8y plus 19 equals 0. Okay. to start, rearrange the terms of the general equation. I will start with 3x squared followed by 18x plus the terms containing y. We have here 4y squared plus 8y. Then as for the constant, that would be transposed on the right side of the equation. Next is to factor out the coefficients of x squared and y squared. So for the first quadratic equation, I would have to factor out 3. Then I will have here x squared plus 6x. As for the second quadratic equation, I need to factor out 4. So I will have here y squared plus 2y. Then copy the right side of the equation. Next step, perform completing the square by adding a constant to the two quadratic equations. So I'll have here 3 multiplied by x squared plus 6x plus the constant plus 4 times y squared plus 2y plus the constant. Then, as for the right side of the equation, we need to add the two constants. Okay? To solve for the constant, for the first quadratic equation, we have here the coefficient of the middle term, positive 6, divided by 2, that would be positive 3. Positive 3 squared, that would be positive 9. Next, the coefficient of the middle term for the second quadratic equation is 2. So 2 divided by 2, that would be positive 1. Positive 1 squared, that would be positive 1 also. Okay? Now, the constant term that we will add on the right side of the equation would be the product of 3 and 9. So we have here 3 and 9. Then followed by the product of 4 and 1, or 4 and our constant term. Okay? Next step, let's convert our quadratic equation into its factored form. So I will have here 3 times the square root of x squared, that will be x. Copy the sign of the middle term, that is positive. Take the square root of 9, that will be 3. Then place an exponent of 2. We will do the same for the second quadratic equation. I will have here 4 multiplied by the square root of y squared, that is y. Copy the sign, that is positive. Square root of 1, that would be 1. Then place an exponent of 2. Now, as for the right side of the equation, you would just need to simplify. Negative 19 plus 3 times 9 plus 4. And that would be equal to positive 12. Okay? Next step, divide both sides by 12. So if you do that, I will have here 3 times x plus 3 squared over 12, followed by 4 times y plus 1 squared over 12. Then on the right side, I have here 12 over 12. Last step, simplify the fractions. 3 over 12, that would be 1 over 4. The first term here would be x plus 3 squared over 4 plus 4 over 12, that would be 1 over 3. The second term here should be y plus 1 squared over 3. Then on the right side of the equation, that would be equal to 1. The final answer here is x plus 3 squared over 4 plus y plus 1 squared over 3 equals 1.